Hi everyone, you're back with The Lone Wolf. Welcome to the show. Today I thought I'd address another issue I'm rather passionate about, that of peer pressure. This phenomenon is pervasive and afflicts us in so many different ways throughout our lives. If we're not vigilant, we can fall prey to it and give in to the demands of others. I have a fair bit of experience in dealing with this, and some prominent examples stick in my mind. As you listen, try your best to think of the first time in your life that you were exposed to peer pressure. You'll be surprised at how far back you can go. The ability to resist peer pressure is one of the cornerstones of being a lone wolf and is crucial to master, in my opinion. When I was quite young, at primary school, I think between 9 to 11 years old, I was a huge fan of dinosaurs and the discipline of paleontology. I lived and breathed it. I read Jurassic Park: The Lost World like 3 times. And looking back, it was actually quite advanced for my age, fairly gruesome at times. I loved the films, owned the toys, got the t-shirt. And I also took my hobby a step further and actually joined an organisation called the Dino Society. My mum actually paid for the membership of this, and I received a quarterly newsletter, magazine, and so on. It was great. However, I distinctly remember being the only person in my class that was interested in this niche topic, and I did get a lot of stick for it. For the record, I look back with a great deal of disdain on my experience at primary school. I didn't like the place very much, and having heard from a relative who still lives in the town, I'm glad to say the building was demolished completely a few years ago. Nevertheless, I do remember with clarity the derision I received purely from having a passion that nobody else shared, from not conforming to the established norms and for resisting what was deemed popular by the airheads in the class. I distinctly remember the phenomenon of Pokemon cards during those early days, and the pressure I felt to fit in with their mundane BS, and things would change considerably further down the line. Moving on a couple of years to high school, I drifted away from my interest in archaeology and paleontology. Don't get me wrong, I am still highly passionate about them even today, 30 years later. But I suspect that on a subconscious level, the stuff that I put up with had some sort of psychological effect. As we grow, especially in those early years of physical and mental development, our pursuits and passions are constantly in flux, and we can be very impressionable. I vaguely remember a burning enthusiasm for the written word, and in particular the short stories I used to write in about year 3. I think I was about 6 or 7. I used to write short stories for the head teacher, but this was very early in my time at school. I think she even mentioned it in an assembly one time, but like I said, it's all very vague and embarrassing. This burning passion no doubt made me a target for bullies, given my upbringing, particularly by my father. I was not mentally equipped to deal with this or physically inclined to act. If only I had a time machine. But then I wouldn't have learned anything from it, would I? It's a paradox. So therefore my memories of primary school are not filled with fondness. Nevertheless, I have recently started creative writing again, after all these years, and I'm truly finding passion for it again. I'm putting together 3 novels in my spare time, and I think I've learned from those experiences somewhat. I remember also saying to a friend in year 5 that I would like to be a scientist one day, and that actually happened, fully enough. There was a time when I was presenting to the rest of the class on insects, and showing some photographs I'd taken of an ant's nest or something in the garden, and just the way I explained it was met with laughs and disdain by the other class members. It seems small to talk about it now. I mean, I was like 9 years old, but these events no doubt affect us. I was being worked on by peer pressure, the need to conform, to find acceptance from the social group. It truly is a powerful force to be reckoned with. These people attack anything that doesn't fit in with them, to stop anyone from excelling or rising above their level. Anytime a person shows a spark, an ember of individuality and passion, it is attacked, and I think that this comes from a position of envy in that they don't have the hobbies, pursuits, or love for a topic that you do. I also believe that the phenomenon of peer pressure is at work amongst the bullies themselves, in that people feel the need to attack the outsider, purely to feel as though they belong to a social group. It can be very difficult to resist the temptation to give in, and I'm sure you all have your own experiences of this. At high school, particularly moving into year 10, so about 14 or 15 years old, I truly began to think for myself. Although I had been pressured to listen to the contemporary music of the time, the pop fodder, in a sense, I was and still am a fan of some of Eminem and Dr. Dre's work. I don't discriminate based on genre. A chance to listen to some heavy metal music, Iron Maiden's 2 Minutes to Midnight, totally changed my life almost overnight. My musical tastes altered rapidly. I went out and bought so many albums from a whole range of awesome metal bands, started learning the guitar, formed a band, and became a radically different person. I didn't identify with a specific group, i.e. metalheads or what have you, as I don't believe in stereotyping people in that way. I was a rock metal fan, and that was it. Initially this was met with derision, when I let my hair grow especially, and I was most certainly the odd one out until I found one or two others with comparable interests and passions. My father, who I mentioned in a previous video, regularly moaned at me to get my hair cut, in my opinion because it was against the norm. I didn't care what anyone else thought though, I just did my own thing and found solace, a release, in the music I was listening to. Nevertheless, it took a great deal of mental training on my part to reassure myself that I should forge my own path and make my own mistakes and not care about what others thought. I didn't get much reinforcement from home at the time, and I just remember thinking, you're on your own, live your life by your terms, stuff what everyone else thinks. I recall one time there was a guy who used to hang around in our social circle, all through school, who I would have called a friend at the time, but in actuality was a parasite, feeding off us all to improve his self-esteem and ego. I noticed that he only ever bought the video games that we were talking about at the time, sometimes a game that I had found out about, picked up and shared with the group. I made an off-the-cuff comment to another friend in the group, one of my closest friends at the time, but now estranged, who went and told him this behind my back. And then later that evening, when chatting on MSN Messenger, that's how old this story is, this guy comes at me with hostility, saying he would make it hell for me at school. A supposed friend. How insecure this guy was, yet he acted all tough. And knowing what I know now, I would have called him out on this BS and stood up for myself. And at the time though, I was much less confident, had lower self-esteem and all that, and just wanted to avoid hassle at school. It's funny though when you call out the people that regularly give in to peer pressure. Sometimes the more unhinged ones can lash out. The need to belong is rooted in all of us, as we're social animals, yet it is entirely possible and necessary to break free from peer pressure and forge your own path. Indeed, there is always pressure to act in a certain way, dress in particular clothing. This is just a fact of life at school in the UK, wearing uniform to take all of your individuality away. There would still be pressure though if you could wear what you want, for example brands and people alluding to your poverty if you couldn't afford the best brands. There's always pressure to listen to particular music, behave in a certain way towards girls, go out to certain clubs and bars. With reference to school, all of the hottest girls, and there weren't many really, to be honest, are now either ugly or are married and have got kids with guys who look as though they've had a physical altercation with Mike Tyson. The guys that were the toughest or the alphas at that time are now shadows of their former selves, have children and are pretty much tied down. In fact, I can't think of more than a couple of people from my school year that have actually gone on to do anything remotely remarkable with their lives. These people are so blinkered to the fact that the most unusual, far-out, left-field individuals are often those that have added the most to human society and existence, and instead of helping to nurture that, they maliciously try to destroy it and stamp it out before it's even begun to blossom. That same pressure that we feel at school often extends to adulthood, and you must be very vigilant to resist it, requiring a lot of awareness and training. There will always be some beta that questions why you're still single, why you haven't got a mortgage, why you don't want to get married, why you don't go on holiday to the in places. I was having this discussion the other day about the British fascination with places like Ibiza, Magaluf, places I've never been to and never really will. Why would I want to go abroad, only to be surrounded by other British people, some of the worst British people in fact, when there is a huge wide world out there just waiting to be discovered? I've mentioned this before, and every single time I get funny looks, especially if it was a discussion at my place of work. I know that very soon I'll be able to start addressing my bucket list of places I want to explore once the global situation calms down, including but not limited to the United States, Canada, Australia, Germany, Norway, South Africa and many more. The desire and drive to accomplish something, whether significant or mundane, must emanate from within and be intrinsic. I've always admired people that navigate their own ship, chart their own voyage. Ironically, these are often the same people that are attacked and vilified by those around them, and this has particular relevance to men going their own way, for example, the lone wolf lifestyle. What? You mean you don't ever want kids? You never want to get married? You'll be miserable all your life. Don't you feel as though you're missing out? You're always the single one when we hang out. As you can see, it is extremely difficult to be an outsider, to resist peer pressure and be independent. But by adopting a lone wolf lifestyle, you're already well on the path to accomplishing this. Many of you have also no doubt been privy to the vitriolic criticism that certain segments of the community have flung at men going their own way. And given what I've just been speaking about, it's easy to understand why this is the case, especially with regards to other men that are still plugged in. One of my favourite sayings is, and it's a saying from within this space, it's better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction. And a wolf does not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep. This applies not just from the lone wolf perspective, but life in general. Do things your way, never give in to pressure, shaming, and the like. Ultimately, think for yourself and form your own opinions and worldview. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'm keen to hear your own experiences of peer pressure and the ways that you've addressed it in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe on your way out, and until next time, take care.